Carbohydrates are made of sugar. Carbohydrates are for energy. They're made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. They all have the same chemical formula, which is C6H12O6. They have a very similar looking shape in that they form a ring with those 6 carbons. But they are slightly different, and therefore they have different names. So you can see glucose, galactose, and fructose in the picture, and they're all rings. They all have the same formula, but they are slightly different shapes. Sugars are also named ose at the end, so you can know when you're talking about a sugar, it ends in ose, like lactose. So simple carbohydrates are sweet. Our tongues can actually taste the difference between simple and complex carbohydrates. So monosaccharides and disaccharides are simple carbohydrates. So monosaccharide means single ring, disaccharide means double ring. So those are sweet foods. They give you immediate energy, and glucose is what cells use for energy. So glucose is the energy of cells. When you string a bunch of monosaccharides or single rings together to form long chains, you get complex carbohydrates or polysaccharides. We can actually taste the difference between simple and complex carbohydrates. They taste starchy or bland, so those would be grains and pastas and veggies, and they would give you energy over a longer period of time, and so they are long chains of rings. In nature, you can see that fruit is often an example of where you see simple carbohydrates, so simple sugars. So a lot of fruits wrapped there are essentially enticing mammals to come and eat their babies so that they can go somewhere else. Starch is the energy storage used in plants. So potatoes, sweet potatoes, even corn, the extra energy that they produce, they store as starch. And so starch is a polysaccharide with a long chain of glucose molecules that store energy for plants. Animals in their muscle cells typically store their energy as glycogen, which is still a bunch of glucose molecules stuck together. However, those are arranged slightly different. So just like in all of biochemistry, different shapes provide different functions. Lastly, you have plants using carbohydrates to form their cell wall in the terms of cellulose. And so the cell wall is the outermost part of the plant cell, and it's similar to starch in that it's a bunch of glucose molecules that are stuck together, but they're bonded slightly different. And so you and I and most things can't break those polysaccharides, that cellulose, apart, and so we use that cellulose that's in wood to make paper and other things. So you have some uses and functions for carbohydrates. Primarily, carbohydrates are for energy, whether that's immediate as a simple carbohydrate, or complex carbohydrates are for longer storage of energy. So glycogen is how animals typically store energy in their muscles. Plants usually store their energy as starch. And plants also use a polysaccharide called cellulose to build structures like their cell wall. So you can see here that you have 3 different examples of polysaccharides, and they have slightly different shapes because they have different functions.